What's up everyone, it's Victon here with another Path of Exile build guide. This video will be slightly different than other build guides, as I'm sure at this point everyone has seen what Carrion Golems can do gameplay wise, so we won't waste any time with a gameplay showcase. If you are interested in seeing what they look like in action though, I would highly suggest checking out some of my other in-game build guides for Carrion Golems, as I do show great footage of what they look like in action. For today though, we're just going to be talking about how to start a Carrion Golem build for the absolute minimum cost. Basically everything you absolutely need to get rolling, while of course keeping a low budget in mind. The hope here is that if you're interested in playing Carrion Golems but aren't sure because you see all these high prices with the items it uses, like the jewels for example, I want to ease your troubled mind and show you the way that you too can play a crazy strong build and not break the bank. As always, before we get into everything, if you end up enjoying this guide, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, consider becoming a Patreon supporter. You're going to gain access to my subscriber-only Discord, where I'm much more able to help people with their builds and do build reviews in general. Plus, we have a very active community of others just like you, ready and waiting to help. Also, follow me on twitch.tv/vonvicton_, as we've just started streaming. Stop by sometime and hang out with us, ask as many questions as you want while we play some Path of Exile. Anyways, enough of that, let's jump right into the passive skill tree, and from there we're going to go over the gem links, and finally the gear section, where we've mapped everything out, and at the end of the day, you're going to have to spend about 6 to 7 exalts to get fully rolling, with a surprisingly strong Carrion Golem build considering the build cost. And it all comes out to about 1.4 million Shaper DPS per golem, so about 5.5 to 5.6 million in total, which is pretty respectable for a budget starter build. Alright, so first things first here, we're going to be using the desktop app Path of Building. A link's going to be in the description for you to download it if you don't already have it. And it's very important to note here that if you get an error in your Path of Building, it's because you're not using the Path of Building I have linked in the description. It's the community fork Path of Building. It's updated more frequently, and overall it's just a much better than the original. Once you get it, just copy the POB pastebin link in the description of this video. Then we're going to open up the app, go to the top left here and click Import Export Build. And then we're going to click import from pastebin, and then paste that link into here and click import, and you should be good to go. So the way I do my Path of Buildings is I typically have a leveling guide built in so you can see how to level it up from level 1 all the way until a level 100 character. Now for this tree specifically, and because this is a budget version, we won't be spending any money on getting any cluster jewels, so it's a very straightforward basic tree. First, you're going to start off by heading over here to get Sacrifice for great minion defenses, which really helps out while leveling. After that, we're going to pick up Lord of the Dead for +1 to maximum zombie and skeleton, which, by the way, quick tip here, until we get Carrion Golems, you're going to be using skeletons and zombies together in a 6-link tabula rasa with melee physical, minion damage, added fire, and melee splash. From there, just pick up life and mana nodes. Next, we're going to go up and grab the +1 to Spectre, Zombie, and Skeleton. But at this point, we actually don't use any Spectres because they're just going to die very easily, unless you have later the Wraithlord helmet, but that's later on. Once you get to Act 7, the Ashen Fields, you can pick up your first 2 Spectres, and I'd suggest getting 2 Carnage Chieftains while leveling. From there, we're going to head over and grab the Golem Wheel for +1 to maximum Golems. Around this point, you will also be getting your normal lab done and ascending to Elementalist, as well as starting to use your Carrion Golems. I'd only make the switch to Carrion Golems though once you have the first passive points into Elementalist, also the +1 to maximum Golem from the tree, and 1 to 2 Clay Shapers for an additional +1 to 2 maximum Golems. Anyways, from there we're going to get some more life, and if you have the currency, you can buy and put in your first Primordial Jewel, a Primordial Might. And since we're on the topic of primordial jewels, and since they're so incredibly important for this build, let's go ahead and talk about them real quick. In this budget starter build, we're going to be getting the bare minimum here. The first primordial jewel you should buy, like I said, is a primordial might. These are currently running at 70 chaos. From there, you're going to need a primordial eminence, which runs for about 7 chaos. Lastly, you need a primordial harmony, which only goes for about 12 chaos. Once you have all 3 of those jewels, you're going to need to buy all 3 of them again so that we can then vendor them all together and pop out an Anima Stone. Using the vendor method is much cheaper than buying the Anima Stone outright, so make sure you do that if you want to save some additional currency. For all primordial jewels and the Anima Stone, you're looking at paying just about 2.5 exalts, which is about 89 chaos right now in the current market, which I will have to say is ever changing every single day. So really not too bad to start out though, honestly. Anyways, those are the primordial jewels, and we'll talk about them a little bit more as we go through the tree here. But again, start off with the primordial might in this jewel socket, and it should be the first one you equip. From there, we're going to head down and grab some nice life, and also a nice minion damage wheel. And after that, we're going to grab some more life, as well as some chaos resistance. After that, we're going to get some more minion damage, and some more life. And from there, we actually start picking up some more of our jewel sockets. And if you have all those jewels, you can now socket them in using all of these jewel socket here. Doing this will net you +2 to maximum golems. So while leveling, if you have +2 to golems from your ascendancy, +1 from the skill tree, +2 from 2 clay shapers, and +2 from your anima stone, you actually end up with 7 carrion golems. It's actually pretty crazy. You could honestly even use 5 carrion golems, 1 chaos golem, and 1 stone golem to be a bit tankier as you level up. It's completely up to you. Anyways, from there, we're going to pick up some more life, as well as unwavering stance for stun immunity. And around this point, you should be starting to do maps, and honestly sailing through them with pretty great damage and a decent life pool. As you progress further, we're going to pick up this next minion damage cluster here, and then we're going to fill out the rest of the tree like this with some more minion damage and life. You finish the budget starter version at level 88. And at this point, I think you'll have all the gear and the gems that we'll talk about shortly, and can move on to the in-game version of the build, which of course is linked in the description below. As far as Ascendancy, we're of course going to be going with Elementalist, because it gives you the best damage and is really the only pick for the life version of this build. You're first going to be picking up Liege of the Primordial for +1 to maximum golem, as well as some golem buff effect, and most importantly, golems are immune to elemental damage. And from there, we're going to pick up Elemancer for another +1 to maximum golem and for some more golem buff effect, as well as complete elemental ailment immunity for yourself, which is also incredibly strong. For your third notable point here, we're going to get Paragon of Calamity for some decent survivability in the form of elemental damage reduction. And lastly, we're going to pick up Pendulum of Destruction, which isn't insane for us, but it does help with our auras to be a little bit larger every once in a while, which helps our minions be affected by our auras more often, so a decent pickup here. And very lastly for our skill tree here is our Amulet Anointment. We will be anointing Ravenous Horde on our amulet. It's a cheap anoint and also provides the most DPS for a single anointable node. As you can tell with our skill tree here and all of the gems and the gear we'll talk about shortly, we came out to 1.4 million shaper DPS for each golem, so pretty solid for a budget build. And that's of course being very fair and simple for the DPS configuration. There's nothing checkmark here that is unrealistic, so it's pretty accurate DPS and will feel very good while leveling up and while mapping. And that brings us to the end of the skill tree, so let's go ahead and move on to the gem links. First, of course, we have our Carrion Golem, and for it we have Multi-Strike, Brutality, Minion Damage, Impale, and Melee Physical Damage. For the support minions in our helmet, we're going to have a Raise Zombie, an Animate Guardian, a Raise Spectre, and a Blood Magic. Now, for your Spectres, we're going to go with 1 Host Chieftain for power charges to your minions, 1 Carnage Chieftain for frenzy charges, both of which can be raised from Act 7 in the Ashen Field zone. And lastly, 1 They of Toll, which gives great defensive aura and can be picked up from a Toll Breachstone. And quick tip here, if you ever need any Spectres that you don't have, like They of Toll in this case, just go to the global chat and type in /global6666. That is the Spectre global chat, and just ask for the Spectre that you need. Someone will send you a party invite, and when you go to their hideout, you can desecrate and pick up that Spectre. It saves you a ton of time, and I highly suggest using this method over trying to get them yourself. Now for our Animate Guardian, since this is a budget build that's focused on doing tier 1 to 16 regular mapping, we want to keep the cost down but still give us some nice DPS and quality of life boosts. First, we're going to be giving him a Dying Breath Staff for a small damage boost to your golems. We're then going to give him a Learcast Helmet for another small damage boost. And then Victario's Flight Boots for a nice movement speed buff to you and your minions. Replica Volker Gloves for some nice chaos resistance. And lastly, a body armor like this, with life, maximum percent life, some elemental resistances, and also chaos resistance. This full setup costs you about 15 chaos, so really not too bad for a moderate damage boost. This is a very good budget setup because it is very cheap, so if your Animate Guardian dies, no worries, you can just go buy these items again and re-summon him. Going back to our gym links, we will be going with a Chaos Golem, Feeding Frenzy, Stone Golem, and Maim. Now, moving on to our buffs for our minions, we're going to pick up Dread Banner, Generosity, Pride, and Summon Skitterbots. And for our weapons, we first have a Flesh Offering, Convocation, and a Flame Dash. And for our second weapon, we go with a Steel Skin, Second Wind, and Increased Duration. Lastly, we do have a Profane Proxy Ring, so inside of it, we're going to be putting in the Vulnerability Curse. And that's it for our gym links, so let's go ahead and move on to our gear section. For our gear, again, this is a budget build, so everything here will actually be quite cheap. And on most items, I gave myself a 10 chaos spending limit, so pretty reasonable, I think. First though, we do pick up a 6-link Wall of Brambles, which has great defenses with over 2,000 armor, and it only cost us about 25 chaos for that 6-link, so an absolutely amazing purchase for the price. For our weapons, we're going to pick up 2 Cold Iron Point Daggers for about 7 to 10 chaos each. These in total give +6 to level of all physical spells, which makes our Carrion Golems do so much more damage. It also boosts our Animate Guardian's level and makes him more tanky, along with a few other gems that we have like Vulnerability. These weapons are actually best in slot forever, and you'll never replace them even in the min-maxed version of the build, so really great pickups. For our amulet, we're just going to go with a cheap one here with some life and some elemental resistances, and also a bit of attributes because we do need some dexterity in this build and we're a bit low. And quick note, on all of these rare items I bought, I made sure to have an open suffix available for crafting. I then bench crafted chaos resistance on them. Doing this on your rings, your amulet, your glove, and your boots as much as possible gives you some really nice chaos resistance, and definitely worth the extra effort. For our gloves, same thing here, we just picked up a pair with life and all resistances here. For our first ring here, we got one with life, resistances, and again that open suffix so we can craft some chaos resistance. And we did this on an unset ring, so I can socket in a portal gem, but that's personal preference and you can do whichever you like. You can get a regular ring or you can get the unset ring for your portal. For your second ring, like I mentioned before, we are picking up a Profane Proxy, and make sure to put this in your left ring slot so we get the Vulnerability Curse as well as the Skitterbot Shock effect. Now, for our helmet, you might actually have to spend slightly more than 10 chaos here, but I was able to snag one for 10 chaos. This item is quite important though, as it gives you +1 to level of minion gems, and minion gems are supported by minion life, and anything is fine here at level 16 to 20. Doing this gives your specters, zombies, and Animate Guardian a ton of life, and helps them to stay alive. Without this, they will die more frequently, and it's quite annoying to have to resummon them. For a belt, we're going to go with the cheap Darkness Enthroned. It's super strong by boosting the jewels inside of it by 75%, and the jewels we socket in it are something like this. Each jewel was under 10 chaos for me, and both are very solid with minions deal % increased damage if you've used a minion skill recently, as well as a good roll for minions deal additional physical damage. Get the highest physical damage roll you can within your budget. And lastly here for our gear, we're going to be going with a very simple pair of boots, again just with some life, elemental resistances, at least 30% move speed, and an open suffix so you can craft chaos resist. With all of this gear, you should end up with about 4,500 life, maximum elemental resistances, and 45% or so chaos resistance, and around 70% physical damage reduction, which for the budget cost of everything is actually pretty solid, and will definitely easily take you all the way and past in-game content. From there, of course, I'd suggest checking out my life version min-maxed guide and see what upgrades you should be looking for next. A link is of course going to be in the description for that guide. And with all of that said, that brings me to the conclusion and my final thoughts on this budget build. Overall, as usual, Carrion Golems are fantastic even on a budget. It's a super strong skill that will excel no matter what your budget is. Being able to run in circles around a difficult boss makes deathless boss fights super easy and a really great way to learn fights. If you're already playing Carrion Golems or considering playing them, I hope this budget starter build guide was able to help you out in some way to make that decision a little bit easier, and I hope I was able to explain everything in a way that was easy to understand while still providing you with everything you need to know to make a successful build. As always, if you like this guide or any of my other mini Path of Exile guides, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. Also, if you're interested in supporting the channel to help me continue putting out these build guides, consider supporting me on Patreon. You'll get access to my subscriber-only Discord, where I'm much more available and able to help with individual build reviews. And speaking of build reviews, stop by my Twitch stream and come hang out with us. I do frequent build reviews on stream to help people out, and in general, we just have a good time playing some Path of Exile between all of these build guides I put out. Check the links below for both my Twitch channel and my Patreon. That's all I got for this one, guys. Thanks everyone, and I will see y'all in the next one.